There comes a moment in every journey when progress feels invisible, when every step seems to lead nowhere, and the voice inside whispers, "Why continue?" That exact instant, when the urge to give in feels strongest, is often the turning point that separates those who dream from those who achieve. History is filled with examples of people who stood at the edge of doubt and chose to take just one more step. Think of Thomas Edison, who after thousands of failed attempts at creating a working light bulb, pressed forward despite exhaustion and ridicule. He didn't stop because results seemed absent. He moved because he believed the next attempt could be the one. That single choice transformed darkness into light for the entire world. And here's the truth: you are no different. The finish line rarely announces itself. The treasure never hangs a sign saying, "Just one more swing." Instead, progress hides behind resistance. The ground feels toughest before the seed bursts through. The weight feels heaviest before the chain finally breaks. Most people retreat, not because their strength has run out, but because their patience has. Fatigue convinces the mind that the effort is meaningless. But that is the illusion. When you feel like nothing is shifting, something deep beneath the surface is preparing to erupt. The universe is asking, will you trust the unseen? Picture yourself mining through a mountain. The hammer has struck stone countless times. Sweat drips, hands ache, and silence mocks every swing. Others may have walked away, leaving their tools behind. Yet what if the very next strike is the one that breaks through to gold? Would you want to discover that truth, or live forever wondering what might have been? This is why persistence matters more than talent, more than resources, even more than luck. The one who endures a little longer, who takes a step when every muscle demands rest, discovers that breakthroughs rarely come to the strongest. They come to the most determined. But how do you continue when energy feels gone? By shifting your focus from how you feel to why you started. Emotions fluctuate. Motivation rises and fades. But vision, true vision, anchors you beyond the noise of the moment. Remind yourself, I am not working for relief. I am building for legacy. Legacy isn't built in applause or spotlight. It is crafted in silence, in the unseen hours when nobody claps, nobody praises, and no one notices. Think of a farmer rising before dawn, sowing seeds when the soil still looks empty. He doesn't wait for proof before he plants. He acts on faith, knowing that harvest belongs to those who refuse to stop watering when the field still looks barren. The world often calls this stubbornness, but those who create change know it as discipline. Discipline is the gentle but unshakable reminder that the mission matters more than the mood. It is the decision to show up again and again, even when excitement is gone and only commitment remains. Ask yourself, have you forgotten what you declared you wanted back when your heart was full of fire? Did you allow comfort to rewrite your destiny? Or will you rise again, not because it feels easy, but because your future deserves the effort? You see, greatness is never free. It demands sweat, patience, and sacrifice. But here's the beauty. Pain passes, fatigue fades, and discouragement weakens. What remains is strength, resilience, and the unshakable confidence that comes only from knowing you refuse to quit. So the next time doubt whispers, remember this. The moment you feel closest to surrender may be the exact moment you are closest to victory. Step forward once more. Swing again. Push again. Because the breakthrough you seek may not be tomorrow or next week. It may be hiding behind the very next move. And when that moment arrives, when light floods the darkness, when the door finally opens, you'll know it wasn't just the last push that made it happen. It was every single step, every silent repetition, every act of faith when nothing seemed to change. That's where greatness is forged. So don't wait for signs. Don't wait for applause. Move because you have decided that quitting is no longer an option. Move because your destiny deserves more than hesitation. Move because the person you are becoming is worth every ounce of effort you give today. Because in the end, victory belongs not to the ones who started strong, but to the ones who refuse to stop. Every person alive has felt that pull, the temptation to pause, to wait for the perfect conditions, to believe that tomorrow will be easier. But tomorrow is a liar. Progress is never waiting in the future. It is always born in the action you take right now. Think of the ocean. Waves never ask permission before they crash onto the shore. They don't wait for approval, applause, or recognition. They simply move, again and again, endlessly, shaping cliffs into beauty over centuries. That is what persistence looks like in nature. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. Now apply that to your own life. You don't need brilliance every day. You don't need extraordinary talent. What you need is the courage to act consistently, even when nobody is watching, and even when results remain invisible. This is where most give up. They assume that because progress isn't visible, it isn't happening. They forget that roots grow in silence before the tree ever touches the sky. Real transformation almost always begins unseen. Think of Albert Einstein working alone, scribbling equations that would later transform how humanity understands the universe. In his early days, there were no crowds cheering him on, no spotlight, no instant approval. What existed was persistence, hours of patient trial, relentless questioning, endless notes that seemed meaningless until one breakthrough made the invisible visible. That same principle is alive in you. Your ideas, your goals, your dreams, they don't require recognition to grow. They require commitment. You may not see the shift today, but every action plants a seed. Every repetition builds muscle. Every choice compounds into strength. But here's where most people lose their edge. They confuse readiness with action. They wait to feel prepared, confident, fearless. Yet readiness is never the starting point. It is the byproduct of movement. Confidence doesn't arrive before you take the leap. It is forged because you took the leap. Picture an explorer standing at the entrance of a vast jungle. The path ahead is unclear. Fog hides the horizon, and fear whispers warnings of what might go wrong. But the instant he steps forward, something changes. Reality replaces imagination. The unknown becomes navigable. Fear shrinks in the presence of action. That is the secret. Fear is not defeated by thought, but by movement. Action is the armor that protects you from hesitation. How many opportunities have you lost? Not because they were impossible, but because you paused too long. The business not started, the conversation avoided, the change delayed, all because of hesitation. But each step you take, no matter how small, weakens fear's grip. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It is the decision to act in spite of fear. And the more you practice this, the less power fear holds over you. Remember this. You don't need permission to begin. The world will not send you a signal. Conditions will never be perfect. You must create momentum through your own choice. Imagine a captain sailing into thick fog. He cannot see the horizon, yet he lifts the anchor anyway, not because the path is clear, but because his compass is true. That compass is your vision, your purpose. Trust it, even when sight fails. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop waiting for clarity and begin moving, clarity begins to appear. Movement generates momentum. Momentum reveals direction. Direction uncovers opportunity, but none of it begins until you decide. Ask yourself, are you still waiting for someone to validate your dream? Are you still hoping for a green light? If so, remember, nobody else carries the fire you carry. It isn't their mission, it's yours. And the longer you wait, the heavier the doubt becomes, until even the clearest vision fades into maybe someday. Don't let that happen. Today is not a rehearsal. Today is your chance to act with faith, to to prove that your decisions matter more than your excuses. Because here's the ultimate truth: the world doesn't reward potential. It rewards persistence. Potential is everywhere. Persistence is rare. And when you commit to relentless action, not grand bursts of energy, but steady daily forward movement, you become impossible to ignore. The world eventually bends for the one who refuses to stop pressing forward. Think of a river cutting through rock. It doesn't roar in frustration. It doesn't collapse in fatigue. It simply keeps moving day after day until stone itself must yield. That is what your journey can become: steady, determined, inevitable. So stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting for courage. Stop waiting for someone to say, "Now is the time." The only approval you need is the decision you make in your own heart. Take the step. Speak the word. Build the foundation. Not later. Not tomorrow. Now. Because each time you move, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. And one day, when the results finally burst into view, people will call you an overnight success. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't overnight. It was the invisible work, the relentless action, the countless steps taken when nobody was watching. That's how legends are built. And that's how your story begins. The world often celebrates motivation as if it were magic, that spark of excitement that pushes you to start. But motivation is like the wind. It comes and goes, unpredictable and fleeting. Those who rise to greatness don't rely on gusts of inspiration. They rely on something far stronger, far steadier: discipline. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. Yet it is the most reliable companion you'll ever have. Motivation asks, "Do I feel like it today?" Discipline answers, "I will do it anyway." Consider athletes at the highest level. Serena Williams didn't become a champion because she always felt inspired to train. She became unstoppable because she trained when she was tired, when nobody cheered, when progress was invisible. That commitment, repeated in silence, created results the world could no longer ignore. And the same principle applies to you. Discipline is remembering what matters most, even when the noise of the moment tries to distract you. It is loyalty to your vision when comfort whispers, "Rest a little longer." It is the choice to act, not because it feels easy, but because it feels necessary. Imagine a craftsman building a cathedral. He lays stone after stone, day after day. To others, it looks repetitive, even pointless. But he sees the bigger picture. He knows each stone matters, even when no one notices. Decades later, the world marvels at the masterpiece. Yet the true miracle was not in the finished work. It was in the discipline to keep laying bricks when the reward was still unseen. That is how greatness is born. Not in applause, not in the spotlight, but in daily unseen choices. Ask yourself, how often have you let fleeting moods decide your future? How often have you allowed a tired morning or a heavy day to erase the commitment you once made with fire in your heart? The truth is, emotions are temporary. They rise, they fall, they shift like weather. But your vision must remain the anchor. If you wait for feelings to align before you move, you will wait forever. If you allow moods to dictate your progress, your path will always be unstable. Discipline is freedom. It may feel like restriction at first, but it is actually the opposite. Because once you master yourself, once you prove that you can be trusted to act regardless of feeling, you unlock a level of confidence no one can take away. Think of Leonardo da Vinci sketching late into the night, not for recognition, but because his mission demanded it. Or Marie Curie working tirelessly in her lab, long before the world honored her discoveries. They weren't chasing applause. They were anchored by discipline. And here's the gift discipline gives: consistency. Consistency compounds. One workout may not change your body, but 100 will. One page may not make you a writer, but 1,000 will. One decision may not transform your life, but thousands stacked together absolutely will. Progress hides inside repetition, and repetition is only possible when discipline leads the way. Picture this. A farmer wakes before sunrise. No one praises him. No crowd applauds. He plants seeds in silence, waters in silence, waits in silence. Seasons pass. Then one day, harvest arrives, abundant, undeniable. But harvest was never built in a single day. It was built in every silent morning, in every act of quiet discipline. That is your task. To stay loyal to your mission when the world is silent. To keep showing up when nobody is clapping. To hold the line when the results are still invisible. This is where champions are made. Not in bursts of motivation, but in the daily act of honoring your commitment. So the next time you feel unmotivated, don't wait for inspiration to return. Choose discipline instead. Say to yourself, I may not feel like it, but my vision deserves my action. And then move, because one day, the world will see the masterpiece you've been building. They will call you talented, gifted, even lucky. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It was discipline. And that force, quiet and consistent, will carry you farther than motivation ever could. Many people believe the right path should feel smooth, encouraging, and effortless. They expect the universe to roll out a clear road whenever they're aligned with their purpose. But in reality, the most meaningful paths rarely feel comfortable. In fact, they almost always feel heavy, uncertain, and challenging. And that's how you know you're on the right track. Growth is not supposed to feel easy. It stretches what is tight, tests what is weak, and pushes you beyond what feels safe. If the road you're on feels difficult, it doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're changing. Think of Nelson Mandela, locked away for 27 years. Every day was filled with resistance, silence, and hardship. But when freedom finally came, the strength forged in those dark years gave him the power to lead a nation into a new era. The struggle wasn't a detour, it was preparation. Your own resistance serves the same purpose. When life feels heavy, when each step requires courage, it's not rejection, it's refinement. Resistance is life's way of asking, how much do you want this? Are you willing to grow for it? The mistake most people make is using feelings as their compass. They assume that if it feels painful, it must be wrong. But feelings are unreliable guides. They sway with the wind, they scream when stretched, and they seek comfort, not growth. If you measure your progress by how easy it feels, you will abandon every meaningful pursuit the moment it gets hard. Instead, you must anchor yourself to principle, not emotion, to conviction, not convenience, to the deeper why that made you start in the first place. Imagine an explorer trekking through a frozen wilderness. Each mile is exhausting. His muscles ache, the cold bites, and the silence offers no encouragement. But he keeps moving because he knows beyond this trial lies discovery that no one else dared to reach. He doesn't keep going because it's easy. He keeps going because the destination is worth the cost. And so it is with you. Have you ever quit too soon, mistaking hardship for a closed door? Have you walked away from something powerful because you thought, it shouldn't be this hard? You are not alone. Most people do. But difficulty is not disapproval. Challenge is not rejection. Sometimes resistance is the proof that you are heading exactly where you're meant to be. Ask yourself honestly, if it was effortless, would it even change you? True transformation demands effort. It requires fire. It demands that you walk when your body begs to rest, that you stand when your heart wants to retreat. Remember, shallow goals don't push back. Empty destinations don't fight you. Only meaningful ones do. So when the path feels heavy, shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this so hard? Ask, What strength is this building in me? Instead of retreating at resistance, see it as a signpost. You are being stretched, and therefore you are being shaped. The pioneers, the inventors, the leaders of history, none of them were carried by ease. Every single one was tested by fire, but those tests became the very foundation of their greatness. So do not let resistance discourage you. Let it energize you. Let it remind you that you are in the arena, playing the real game, chasing something worth fighting for. Every step you take under pressure becomes proof of your endurance. Every day you persist under weight becomes evidence of your strength. And when the breakthrough comes, and it will, you will stand taller not just because you arrived, but because of the person you became on the way there. So when your heart whispers, "Maybe I chose wrong, maybe this is too much," pause, breathe, remember why you began, and take one more step. Because in the end, it's not the easy roads that build remarkable lives. It's the difficult ones. And those who dare to walk them, despite the resistance, become the ones the world can never forget. There comes a point when you realize that no mentor, no coach, no guide can walk the path for you. You can study strategies, read books, listen to speeches, but in the quiet moments when the alarm rings and no one is watching, it is only you and your decision. Leadership begins not with commanding others, but with commanding yourself. If you cannot lead your own choices, how can you expect to guide anyone else? The foundation of all influence lies in self-leadership. Mastering your actions when no applause is given, when no eyes are on you, when no one will know whether you followed through. Imagine a ship drifting at sea. The waves toss it, the wind pushes it in random directions. It has no anchor, no compass, no course. Now imagine the captain stepping forward, gripping the wheel, and choosing a direction even in the fog. That is self-leadership. Not waiting for perfect conditions, but creating clarity through action. History proves this truth again and again. Mahatma Gandhi didn't wait for permission to begin. He mastered his own discipline first, fasting, studying, training his own will, before leading millions in peaceful resistance. His external influence came only after internal leadership was established. The same is true for you. The real test is not whether others believe in you. It is whether you believe in yourself. And that belief is not built through words. It is built through consistent action. Ask yourself, can you trust yourself to follow through? When you promise yourself you'll rise early, do you? When you commit to building something, do you keep going even when it's inconvenient? Every small choice is a vote for or against your own credibility. Your reputation with yourself is everything. The world may see your highlight reel, but you see your habits. The world hears your speeches, but you hear your excuses. And deep down, you know the truth, whether you are someone you can rely on. This is why self-leadership is the rarest form of power. It cannot be faked. It cannot be borrowed. It must be earned daily, brick by brick, through promises kept and discipline honored. Think of a bricklayer. He shows up each morning, whether the sun shines or the rain falls. He places one brick, then another. Each day the wall grows higher, stronger. He doesn't rush. He doesn't quit. Over time, his steady effort builds a fortress. That fortress is self-trust, and it is unshakable. The mistake many people make is assuming leadership comes from titles, recognition, or authority. But true leadership is invisible. It is built when you act even when no one cares. It is built when you hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone else demands. And here's the key. Once you prove to yourself that you can be trusted, the world begins to notice. Not because you shout louder, but because your presence carries weight. People trust those who trust themselves. But this must start with you. You cannot outsource your strength. You cannot wait for someone else to push you. The day you stop waiting for outside pressure and begin steering your own course is the day your power multiplies. Ask yourself, Have you abandoned your own command? Have you been drifting, hoping someone else will tell you where to go? It's time to reclaim the wheel, because nobody else can walk your path. Nobody else can wake up for you, work for you, sweat for you, or believe for you. It is your responsibility and your privilege to lead yourself. This doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you'll never stumble. It means you refuse to surrender your authority to moods, distractions, or excuses. It means that even on your weakest day, you take at least one deliberate step forward. And when you practice this daily, when you consistently choose discipline over delay, focus over distraction, action over hesitation, you become the kind of person who commands respect without saying a word. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more examples. And your life can be that example, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. So begin with yourself. Lead your own mornings. Lead your own habits. Lead your own energy. Once you master that, influence will follow naturally. Because the greatest leaders are not those who wait for others to move. They are the ones who prove, day after day, that they can move themselves, and by doing so, inspire the world to follow. There is a kind of strength that the world cannot ignore. It is not the loudest voice in the room. It is not the most charming or the most talented. It is the strength of someone who refuses to be moved, who stands firm when storms rage, who keeps walking when others have surrendered. That strength is unshakable, and it is available to you. Unshakable people are not born. They are forged. They are shaped in the silent hours, in the unseen battles, in the choices no one applauds. Every time you hold your ground when it would be easier to quit, you are building that strength. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are laying the foundation of an unshakable life. Imagine a mountain rising above the clouds. Winds may howl, storms may beat against its sides, but the mountain does not move. It remains steady and immovable. That is who you must become. Not because life is easy, but because you've chosen to anchor yourself deeper than circumstances. Think of Rosa Parks, who with one quiet act of courage refused to give up her seat. She was not the loudest, not the most powerful in worldly terms, but her unshakable stance shifted the direction of history. That is the power of conviction, lived out with quiet courage. The same unshakable force lives within you. You do not need permission. You do not need applause. What you need is the decision to hold your standard when it would be easier to lower it. To stay true to your mission when your emotions beg for comfort. To rise again and again, no matter how many times life tries to push you down. Ask yourself, what reputation are you building with yourself? Do you trust your own word? Do you keep the promises you make to yourself? Because the world may see your appearance, but only you know your standard. And that reputation, the one you carry inside, is the foundation of everything you will ever achieve. Your emotions will fluctuate. Some days you'll feel unstoppable. Other days you'll feel tired, uninspired, even doubtful. But emotions are not masters. They are messengers. They can inform you, but they must not control you. The mission remains the compass. And here's the truth. The world does not reward moods. It rewards results. It rewards persistence. It rewards those who show up again and again, no matter how they feel. So let your feelings come, but don't let them steer. You can feel afraid and still act. You can feel tired and still move. You can feel doubt and still build. That is the mark of maturity, the sign of real power, the ability to keep going even when your emotions do not agree. Picture a sculptor working alone in a dusty studio. He chisels day after day, often with no audience, no applause, no recognition. The work is slow, repetitive, sometimes frustrating. Yet he keeps carving. One day, the world sees a masterpiece. They call it genius. But it wasn't genius. It was persistence. It was faith. It was the refusal to quit when silence felt overwhelming. That is your path too. To become unshakable, you must train yourself to act in silence, to keep moving without reward, to trust that every effort is building something invisible that will one day be undeniable. And when that day comes, when your results finally emerge, when the world finally notices, they will call you lucky, they will call you talented, they will call you extraordinary. But you will know the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't talent. It was your decision to remain unshakable. So decide now. Decide that quitting is no longer an option. Decide that your future matters more than your fatigue. Decide that your standard will never drop, even when no one is watching. Because when you become unshakable, the world has no choice but to adjust. Circumstances bend, obstacles weaken, resistance fades, and what remains is you, steady, relentless, undeniable. This is your moment. This is your chance to rise. Not someday, not when conditions improve, but now. Take the step. Build the habit. Honor the promise you made to yourself. Because the future belongs to those who refuse to be moved. And you, right now, have the power to choose that path. Be unshakable, and watch the world transform around you.